Hello and welcome to Season 5, Episode 22 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. My name is Carl Robertson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as regular listeners will have come to expect, sporting his wonderful orange, is it Captain Cloud or Super Cloud t-shirt that you're wearing today? Super Cloud, sporting his wonderful Logicata Super Cloud t-shirt, Principal Cloud Engineer, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
I'm feeling very orange today. It's
very on brand. Very on brand. I like it.
Yeah. I had a bit of a dig through the t-shirt drawer over the weekend because I was looking for something because I did a thing with the karate mob and I needed like one of my karate shirts for that. And then it occurred to me that my Logicata polos, which I'll need for the event that we're doing next week, have been in that drawer since the last time I needed them, which was probably 6 months ago. So they need to come out and have a wash and potentially have a bit of an iron because they're a bit wrinkly. And and then, you know, as with, I think, a lot of people, all of my shirts that I wear are kind of the top half of that drawer. So I thought, why don't I just turn those piles over and get a bit of wear on the other ones for a bit? And this was kind of near the bottom. So yeah,
that's
I'm now
a genius
wearing orange.
idea because I've no idea where my orange shirts are gone. I know I own several, but I haven't seen them for months. So they're probably buried at the back of a wardrobe somewhere. But yes, and I failed to add to the dress code for the conference next week that it should be a freshly ironed Logicata polo shirt.
I mean, I don't iron anything. I just hang it. I just dry it on a hanger, and then it's
neat
fine.
Folding and hanging will also suffice. But anyway, we're not here to talk about laundry. We are here to talk about AWS news, and we're delighted to be joined for the third time by fellow AWS community builder Luis Valdivia. How are you doing today, Luis?
Yes, I'm doing fine, thanks. And it's the third time that I have the opportunity and the pleasure to talk with you.
Well, we're delighted that you've come back to join us again. For listeners who have not seen any of your previous episodes, just tell us a little bit about where you come from, what you do for a living, what you do for the AWS community, etc.
Yes, I am a community builder. This is my third year. I mainly specialize in about media, OTTs, and software development. I'm a CTO from a company in Peru here called Plus One, which is a software factory. We mainly develop customized application, mobile application, web application, or any other application that you want. And we mainly focus to use AWS as an infrastructure. And I'm also a big fan of this t-shirt is from my favorite team in Peru that is called Universitario de Deportes, which has been a champion 3 years in a row. We hope that this year is also a champion, so we are waiting for that.
Fingers crossed. I now remember the last episode you were also wearing a sports shirt from a team, but I think it was it an American team or something you had last time?
No, last time I wore a John Cena t-shirt. I'm also a big fan of WWE and John Cena.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. So
that's why you can't remember it. You can't remember it because you couldn't see it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's really good to have you back on the podcast, Luis. Thank you very much for joining us again, and congratulations on being renewed as a third year in the AWS community program. John and I are going into year 4. Actually, times I got rejected after year 1.
Yes, you are a boomerang. You're a boomerang.
I'm a boomerang community builder.
Which means, to be fair, you've got two of the slightly poor cut things, which they've changed the design on since. And I think you've got two of the hats as well. You've got two of those. They changed the design on them, I think, a couple of years ago now, which means the lid's a bit better. Personally, I don't have it on my desk at the minute. I quite like the, what do they call it? The tumbler of on-demand provisioning, which I got as a, what did they call it? Premium swag for doing something. I got some points, so I got one of them instead, which is much better.
Well, I'm looking forward to whatever the year 4 swag drop is going to bring shortly.
I'm looking forward to not paying my AWS bill now that I've got my credits.
Well, yeah, the credits too, yeah. Oh, yes, those have dropped, haven't they? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, add that to the mental task list. Anyway, we're not here to talk about T-shirts, laundry, or swag. We are here to talk about AWS news. And as regular listeners to the podcast will know, once a week I curate a list of AWS news that I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John picks a selection of those news articles that we would like to discuss with our guest. So we have, of course, shared such a selection with Luis. And the first article is a feature announcement on Amazon.com that AWS Cost Explorer has launched intelligent cost explanations powered by Amazon Q. So I thought this existed already, so I'm not sure why this is news. Maybe, John, you can shed some light on why this is news. Did it not exist already, or has something changed?
I don't know. I don't know. I think something must have changed because, yes, I thought this existed, and then, okay, this is on the 9th of June, so this is about a week ago that this was posted. But now there's an Analyze with Amazon Q button, I think. And there's a lot of very loud birds in Peru because I can hear them coming through my
yes, there are a lot of birds because I live in front of a park.
Nice.
I could just hear every so often just this whistle coming through. So yes, I assume there's something new going on because yes, you could kind of do this, and we've spoken about this before in terms of autographs, and it's a nice thing to have to explain cost spikes and things that sort of don't really make any sense. And the feature announcement does, in truth, kind of address this, right? It says previously analysis required manual investigation across multiple filters and data points. This is something you get quite good at, but only once you've done it a handful of times. I've done it enough times now that I can drill into a problem really very quickly and find, oh, here's the problem, here's where this, here's kind of what's gone on here. There's been this random spike. Oh, it's this service. Okay, look at the linked account to you. Oh, it's that linked account and it's that service. Let's drill that down, filter it down. It's that linked account, it's that service. Now we look at the usage type and we drill down another level. And I can do that reasonably quickly because that's how I know how to do it. I've done it a lot. Q will be slower than me, right? That's no ego. That's Q will be slower than me because what I've found is AI is doing this. They don't ever get any faster. They're always the same kind of consistent speed. They kind of do a thing, get some data, think about it for a minute, do the next thing, get some data, think about it for a minute, do the thing. They never, ever get any faster because they're not inherently learning from each time they're doing it. But if you don't know how to do that, if you've not been looking at cost and usage kind of data and analyzing spikes and all the rest of it for 10 years, like I've been doing, then this is fantastic, regardless of whether it actually existed or not. This is a really good thing for non-technical, semi-technical, new to the cloud, non-FinOps people to be able to go, why does my bill look like that? And I don't think it should. What's this really weird spike in the middle? Push button. Tell me what this is about, please, Mr. Robot, without charging me any money to do it and without having to, engage a FinOps person for £1,000 a day.
Yeah, I've always said that I think Cost Explorer has some fantastic data, but it doesn't particularly present it in a way that is useful by default. So making it easy to get at that information, the questions that spring to mind when you're looking at the default presentation is great in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on this, Luis? Have you tried it? Or?
Yes, I have tried it a little bit because when you enter to the Cost Explorer section, you have a big button that says Analyze with Amazon Q, so you won't miss it. I think it is very helpful because it helps you to create monthly cost reviews, generates an explanation before you share a screenshot, can help you with incident response because you understand what is the cause of the spike without manually filtering with six combos. Onboarding because it helps new engineers to understand what their team is spending patterns without needing a FinOps subject matter expert present. And it can also help you to understand anomaly triage. You can ask you to compare current month versus last month. And you can have it can explain you all the data and all the services that it's using. But I think it can have some limitations because Q doesn't know our business context. Maybe the spikes that we are getting are normal in our flow, but Q will say this is a problem. Maybe a cool feature that could have is Q. This flow should be connected to saving plans or reserved instance to only tell you can reduce your cost with this service plan or reserve this instance for one year or 3 years. Because only in this In this stage, it only analyzes the data, it doesn't give you some recommendations or action to take.
I wonder if you can ask it for the recommendations and actions. It may do, but I mean, obviously, some of that is in Cost Optimization Hub, isn't it? Which is a different part of the billing console. So this, I guess, it's specifically talking about Cost Explorer, isn't it? So I don't know whether the functionality extends to Cost Optimization Hub.
I think probably once you've sort of kicked it off, I think you can just chat with it, as opposed to, because I don't know. I've not played with it, and there was a spike in a customer environment a few weeks ago that I actually looked at, did it manually. So I might run it on that data set and just kind of see what it comes out with, because there's a few bits in the console that you can just kind of chat with Q after it's kind of done its initial work. And there's a few bits where you say, analyze this error with Q, and it goes and analyzes the error and presents the findings back to you, but that's it. So I don't really know which this is doing. So it might be worth, because I know where this kind of particular data spike is, I might go and run Q against that and say, tell me what this is about, please, because I know what the answer actually is. So
yeah. It's always good to, it's AI. It can make mistakes, but if you already know the answer, it'd be interesting to see if it gives you the same answer. But like all things in AWS, I have tried to use it, but I generally don't have the permissions to do it. you will need permissions in an IAM role to use this if you want to use it. So my typical kind of read-only or reporting roles that I am trusted with in AWS environments generally don't allow me to do it.
It's not trusted so much as actually want. I don't think you want anything beyond that, do you?
Well, no, not really, because then I can't be blamed for anything that goes wrong. So if I can only read and not write, then I can't break anything, can I? So
basically, we treat you like we should treat all of our AI coding agents and things. Don't give them permission to change stuff.
Absolutely, but then they can't do anything. Then they're useless. So
well, no, they can still do all the reading and stuff, and that's kind of what you really want them to do.
Yeah.
There was something that Stephen Sennett, friend of podcast and AWS community hero, described it as Giga Chad security. It was just so funny.
I don't even get it. You have to explain that to me.
That's an offline meme explanation, I think.
Okay.
You may or may not have seen the concept of an internet Chad and the big thick jawlines and the sort of looks.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably up there with 6, 7, is it? Or is that? No,
I think you're kind of mixing your memes. That's more Gen Z brain rot territory, and the Giga Chad thing is more kind of my age group.
Fair enough.
I don't think Gen X, being that you're an old man, have the idea of memes because you're just all chronically depressed.
Fair enough. Yeah. Anyway, let's move along from the Q in Cost Explorer to another article about FinOps AI. This is an article on siliconangle.com all about AWS debuting AWS FinOps Agent to help customers optimize their cloud spending. And I have to admit, when I first looked at this, I thought, well, how's that different from Q in Cost Explorer then? But I'm assuming it is, and perhaps it does more. But John, can you shed some light on that?
I mean, I can go ahead and try. So I'm going to parrot Corey Quinn on this one a little bit because he hit the nail on the head here. Is AWS has come out with an agent to explain the bill that they spent 20 years making impossible to understand. Okay, then. Like whole companies, whole disciplines exist. FinOps is a thing, in part because it's so hard to work out where your money's actually going in the cloud. And now the approach appears to be, let's not make the bill simpler. Let's make another thing that we can charge people for. And I don't know what the pricing is. I haven't looked at it. But let's make another thing that we can right now or potentially in the future charge people for to explain the bill that should just be easy to understand in the first place. Maybe. I don't know. What I find weird about this is FinOps Agent. Okay, the concept is really good. Yeah, you get a chat interface, or as these days, a chat GPT-like interface, commonly referred to as a chat interface, sure, that looks at the data, looks at your cloud spending, finds optimization opportunities. A lot of the things that we do for our customers on a monthly basis as part of our reporting processes is kind of able to do. It will look at unusual expenses. It will look at anomalies. It will look at recommendations. So this is kind of the point that we were just making as well. It will look at Cost Optimization Hub. I think it looks at Compute Optimizer as well, but I don't know that for sure. it will trace increases in spend to certain services, and then it will actually go and blame the person that made those changes, because if it can find that from CloudTrail and this RDS grew in size by 50%, you went up in instance size because Carl made it bigger. It will go.
No, I didn't. I've only got read only.
Because someone impersonating Carl made it bigger. So it will go and work out who's done that as well, that's interesting, but that could be quite dangerous, because it's one of those, we don't have a blame culture here, but the who did that? Oh, they did that. So sometimes it's useful because you need to know who did it, and sometimes it's a bit like, I like the fact that the data's there. The data's there anyway, right? If you know how to look for it, and surfacing it is useful. So just tread lightly, I think, on that one. It can also do tags and stuff, and it will read, additional tags and that kind of thing to give you a bit more information. So theoretically, it could handle a couple of the concerns that we were sort of sharing about the previous one, which is, does it have extra context? Is this normal for the workflow? Is this a seasonal thing? Over time, it will start to get there. What I don't quite understand is why this exists, because most of this functionality exists already, just in other bits of the console. Right, Compute Optimization Hub exists. Compute Optimizer and Cost Optimization Hub, they already exist. Anomaly detection already exists. CloudTrail is already telling you all of these things. I think it's just giving you like a single pane of glass for some of this data, but I thought that's what Q was supposed to do. So I don't get it.
Well, I guess that this is outside the console, right? It just exists somewhere else, and Q is in the console.
I don't know. It's in public preview, and I would assume it's inside the console, but I don't know.
It is free at the moment, whilst in preview. No pricing has been announced, so this is...
that's quite normal for new services, though, isn't it? It's
very normal for AI. Here's a thing that's going to revolutionize your life, but get used to it and get addicted to it, and then we'll tell you how much it costs. A bit like the approach to selling drugs, isn't it? First hit for free, and then once you're hooked, then you're gonna have to pay an awful lot of money for it. So we'll have to wait and see. But what are your thoughts on this one, Luis?
I think that as John mentioned, we have Cost Explorer, we have anomaly detection, and the other cost optimization hub. But I think this FinOps agent is like AWS is trying to create like the ChatGPT version of this to help new engineers, new people, new customers to understand all the costs. Because with that you can detect unusual patterns. It's very difficult to explain to a client why the instance is growing, because they don't know what is an instance, they don't know what is traffic, they don't know what is network and other things. And it not only explain the anomaly, it will investigate the cost, which workload, which operation, what changed. At level of business, you can explain to your clients the anomalies from the responsible via AWS account ownership. I think it's not a good practice to point, it's your fault, but this agent will tell who is the fault. And also can help you to understand what is causing the spike, the workload name, the business unit, and maybe suggest contact the person in charge. I think I don't understand what is the difference with this agent and the other one that talked with Q, because I think both will be living in the same console. But as John said, maybe this is a new service that currently is free, but in some months or some weeks, it will start to say, this is the price, you can use it here, and you will have to understand. And maybe some of the certifications will change, including this agent.
Yeah, I think this is more proactive, really, than Q. So I think Q is there to allow you to ask questions of the data. The data has always been there, but it's buried in different dashboards and perhaps not presented in a format which is useful for your specific query. But my take on this is that it is actually going to be more proactive in doing investigations on cost spikes and that kind of thing, rather than you as a human having to do it. So Q will answer the questions for your investigation if you go and ask it, Whereas my take on this is it will actually do it for you. Oh, cost doubled this month. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to anticipate what you are going to, you might have asked Q and just tell you anyway, without you having to do anything. So I think that's pretty cool. Because we do that sort of thing for our customers, when we spot a cost spike, rather than have them go off and figure it out for themselves, we'll drill into the data, surface the data, explain what's driving it, what specific, is it more instances? Is it more traffic? Is it, inter availability zone traffic? Whatever it is that might be driving the cost, so that they can try and understand what's driven that. Is it just natural growth? Are more people using the application? Or is it something that we've set up incorrectly that should have been done differently, that, perhaps needs a savings plan or an RI attached to it, or, a VPC endpoint to connect to transfer data through, rather than between availability zones and so on and so forth, which can get expensive. So I think this is going to be more proactive and do some of the things that we might be doing for our customers without us having to ask, whereas Q is more on the reactive side. That's my take on it anyway. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct. I think that's about the size of it. Is hopefully we're moving from I've seen a thing, AI can help me understand it, to it's pushing things to me ahead of time, so that it goes, I've seen this, I've worked out what it is, here you go. And then you can go and do what you want with that information.
Very much like the DevOps agent, investigating, alerts, etc., and doing root cause analysis before you have to do it. I think it's a similar principle here. So pretty exciting, I think, depending on what it's going to cost, of course, when it comes out of preview. So watch this space, and we'll let you know when we find out what it's going to cost. Anyway, let's move on from FinOps. Our next article is an article on the AWS Security blog, all about I can't even say it.
Operationalizing
AWS Security, a maturity roadmap. Yes, lots of things going on in the world of AWS Security, with the development of Security Hub, bringing all of the various different security services together, etc. If you've been following any of that, perhaps it's been difficult for you to follow. I think the aim of this article is to bring a lot of that stuff together to help you understand what you should be doing with the various, recently launched AWS security tools. So, Luis, as a CTO, I'm sure that security is incredibly important to you. So, what are your thoughts on this particular article?
Yes, last year I started to focus a lot in security, because in Peru there are a lot of websites that are compromised. I cannot tell you what are the sites, but there are a lot. There are a lot of data, because many people said or think that when you are on the cloud, you are protected. You are in the cloud and you are automatically protected. And when you start to talk to CISOs officers and you ask them, have you turned your GuardDuty? Your security hub is enabled. Your WAF is with specified rules, and they don't know how to answer. They only do, we are going to buy this new WAF, and we block everything. I have a lot of clients that use WAF, and their CISOs doesn't know what the business are. They only block, and we have a lot of complaints. So this article, it doesn't explain us what are the services. It explains how to use it. The first thing that it says is that we have to need an inventory. And many CISOs and many security specialists doesn't do that. They only block and they ask later. Then it tells you how to use GuardDuty. They don't know how. They don't explain you what is GuardDuty. They explain you how to use it, how to map all the things that you have to do. Then you talk about the architecture. I think these 6 phases are important because of the pandemic, in my case in Peru, we digitalize a lot of services. Before pandemic, we only use cash, and now we use Yape, Plin, that are mobile wallets, and we only use our cell phones. So if you don't protect this and the user, your services will be compromised. And I think it's a good thing to this blog explain all the security specialists and the CISOs to know what to do and how to operate.
Yeah, block everything is a great way to secure your environment, but it's also a great way to go out of business if nobody can access your website or your web store, your application, whatever it is. So all of the levels in between block everything and block nothing there's a lot of complexity there that AWS, I guess, are trying to help solve with these products, but also the roadmap, which is outlined in this article. So what are your thoughts on it, John?
This is a very enterprise-heavy sort of process because it talks about a 6-phase, starting at phase 0 process, right? And the first phase is a couple of weeks, and then the next phase is 2 or 3 weeks, and then the next phase after that is 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's 3 or 4 weeks, and then it's another 4 to 6 weeks, and then someone just got electrocuted, and then it's another kind of mature the architecture, which is an ongoing process. So you're looking at 6 plus 3 plus another 3 plus another 2. You're looking at like this is a 6-month program that they're kind of outlining in this article, which is why it's quite a heavy article. Okay, it's as I say, it's very enterprise focused in terms of going through this, because if you're a one-man band, if you're a small medium business, you probably don't have 2 weeks worth of findings to go and look at. It's probably a day, right? How many GuardDuty findings could you possibly have across an organization with one production workload? Probably not that many, because it's not that busy. How many inspector findings do you have? Hopefully not that many, because you're not building on ancient images of stuff, this kind of thing. Your security score baseline should be pretty decent if your landing zone is in a reasonable state, if it's been done recently, been done by a competent partner, etc., etc., etc. Signal to noise is always hard. Doesn't matter how big you are, but it's always hard. But again, it's easier if you're smaller, because you have fewer false findings, if that makes sense, because there's just less going on. Right, there's just less going on in a smaller environment. And again, build the routing layer. It goes to the guy, or the outsourced team. It goes to Logicata if you're one of our customers for this sort of thing. Right, the routing layer isn't tricky, because you're not going to 6 different teams. You're going to a team. So this is a very complicated and long-winded, drawn-out process, because it's designed for enterprises. That doesn't mean there isn't something that you can learn for kind of every reader, every listener out there, right? Knowing what your kind of current posture is, knowing who you should send notifications to, knowing what is a false positive and that you can consistently suppress. Like we've got one that we know about where if you create an S3 bucket through Terraform, the way it sets the block public access stuff means that it actually GuardDuty flags that it's unset and then reset, and it flags that just because of how Terraform makes stuff. So that's something that we know that we need to suppress. And then things like automated remediation, we have to get to the point where we're talking about AI, because we're talking about AI everywhere, and this isn't necessarily AI. It's a case of things like, a database has been brought up with public access, block it because it's brand new, it's not going to be used for anything, block it and force people to do it properly, that kind of thing. And then just getting into a habit, a process of looking at this every week, every couple of weeks, depending on what's appropriate for an environment, not treating it as a one-time thing, so that you get into this kind of regular cadence of looking at stuff, fixing stuff, making sure it's all working. I don't necessarily think you need to worry about scorecards and stuff. That's very much an enterprise concept of what's our compliance scorecard this week, what's our RAG status, and so on and so on. So like I say, this is a very big, heavy article, very enterprise focused, but generally some good stuff and worth a look.
Yeah, I think the headers, the steps are relevant regardless of what size of business you're in, but ignore the timescales if you're in a smaller business. It's some of these things are very simple in a much smaller business, simply because of the amount of stakeholders involved. But it does certainly outline a reasonable roadmap for any scale of business. Just some of it, as you say, maybe a little bit heavyweight for the type of sort of small and medium businesses that we typically deal with. But it's all things that they need to be considering, because if you are not surfacing all of those different potential security issues and triaging them and dealing with the potential higher impact ones, then you do risk a compromise, and nobody wants to be the next headline when something slips through the net. And on the flip side, nobody wants to be blocking everything and stopping people from accessing the company website, the company web store, the company web app. So yeah, you're right. It is very enterprise focused, as is a lot of AWS content, but I think there's enough in there for the smaller business to understand and sort of take from it what they feel is relevant. Anyway, let's move on to the next article this week. This is an article on the AWS Cloud Operations blog, all about building a multi-account patch compliance dashboard with Kiro specs. So this one's quite interesting to me, actually, because this is potentially useful for us. So I guess you don't have to build it with Kiro specs, but obviously everything's all about AI and AI agents and assistants and so on and so forth. So Kiro being Amazon's spec-driven AI assisted IDE. Yeah, let's talk through building a multi-account patch compliance dashboard first, and why you might use Kiro specs to do it.
So for me, the actual content of the article is not terribly interesting, right? I know it is to you because patch compliance is something that we worry about and that we care about, right? And this is something that I will probably go and do at some stage. And I did ask the guys if we could get some time to do a dev spike on this, but we've not found time to do it just yet. What I think is particularly interesting about this article is this is another flavor of, here's a really cool thing you can do. We've not built it for you. Why not?
Yeah, we've had this a number of times on the podcast, haven't we? Yeah. Here's AWS telling you how to do a thing that AWS really should have just built themselves. If you know how to build it, just build it and give it to us, please.
Yeah, but instead of it being a blog post and some sample CloudFormation templates and a GitHub repo and all that jazz, it's now, here's how you can do it with AI rather than here's one that we did for you but didn't deploy. I think this is just an evolution of, here's a really cool thing that you can have, but we couldn't build it for you because reasons, I think.
I'd love to know what those reasons are. But is this just trying to drive more adoption of Kiro, do you think?
I don't know. I think you've probably hit the nail on the head with this already a few times, in that we are being addicted to these AI tools. And I've gone from a massive skeptic to, I now have a Kiro Pro Plus subscription because I use it so bleeding much. Although admittedly, this month I've only used about 600 tokens so far because I'm really leaning into Quick rather than Kiro. So I may get away with going back down to Pro, but we'll see, depending on how much new work I do this week, because those tokens burns could burn real quick when you kind of start getting going and stuff. Absolutely, I feel like it's driving more people to use Kiro because they're not going to put an article out on, here's how you can do this using Claude skills, because who cares? They want you to use their tool. They want you to put money through their tool, even if it's a loss leader at this point, because eventually the costs are going to go up, right? And they'll go up through, it's almost like a fiscal drag approach that I think they take, which for the uninitiated, fiscal drag is a process wherein governments raise tax revenues by not changing tax boundaries. So inflation makes everybody's salaries go up effectively, but the tax thresholds stay the same. So more people pay more tax, right? And I think we're going through a fiscal drag approach for AI, wherein each plan, package, level, whatever you would call it, costs the same. And you get the same number of credits for it. But the multiplier which credits equal work changes. Where 1,000 credits bought you, 1,000 units of work, 1,000 credits might buy you 800 units of work. And I think we're going to get to, we're sort of starting to see that. I'm certainly seeing that. So yes, massive deviation for the content of the article. It's a really interesting idea, having this multi-account compliance dashboard, because this is something that is absolutely necessary. If you do any measure of EC2 patching, you should go and look at this. Genuinely, you should go and look at this, see if you can build it, because if it's with Kiro, you could probably build it in an afternoon. And that's the power of spec-driven development, right? Is I've built things that either would have taken me months in hours, and anyone that says, I did 6 months of work in an afternoon is lying to you, apart from in very specific scenarios, because it's one of those, I kind of know how to do it, so I'd have to do a lot of learning, therefore it would take me months, as opposed to I already know how to do it, so it's taken 2 weeks down to a day. Fine. Or I've done things that I don't know how to do, or that I kind of only half know how to do. So yes, article's great. I really like the idea. it's a nice example of what you can do with spec-driven development, because if you've not done it, played with it, we're kind of at the sharp edge here because we do this quite a bit. But if you're unfamiliar with it conceptually, it's a really nice entrance point, and it's a really kind of tangible thing you can build. But as I say, my off-topic tangent is, yes, this is yet another example, but a different flavor of here's a cool thing that you could do that we could have built that we didn't. Have fun.
It's also a nice walkthrough on, as you said, spec-driven development and the use of steering files and MCP servers and so on and so forth. So if that's something that you're not kind of fully up to speed with, how best to leverage these tools, then regardless of the specific use case that's being discussed here, it's quite a nice walkthrough on how to best use Kiro. But what are your thoughts on this, Luis? Either on patch management or on Kiro or both?
I will give my opinion as someone who teaches software development. I also teach in a local university here, especially in the Faculty of Engineering. As a piece of infrastructure that is telling us AWS with this compliance dashboard, I think it's okay, but it's not exceptional. What I think is the most valuable thing is the Kiro workflow, because it gives you 4 phases. The steering file, which is a markdown document when you enclosure all the decisions that you are going to take. Then you go to the requirement generations, which Kiro allows you to create a formal requirement file with all the acceptance criteria. The steering files automatically are injected. Then you can output this and review, and then edit all this information. Then you go to design, and then you go to the task generation and execution. This is very helpful because all the software development process it needs the requirements, the design, and the tasks, which helps me to teach students that this is how you manage a software development project in real life, not in the university, because in university, if you fail, you only take the course again. But if you fail in real life, your application will cost you money. Maybe your employee will fire you, and you need to confront that. And I think if I leave Kiro aside, we can take this workflow to any other AI tool that you use. I, for example, use Kiro, Cloud, ChatGPT, Grow, Gemini, and I use all these tools together because, in my case, ChatGPT allows me to create very cool images. Cloud gives you a lot of good code. Grow is especially used for reading, and it look for a lot of information. Gemini and Nano Banana allow you to create other cool images. So you can take this workflow to any other tools, and you can use it as you like.
So have you built an agent that decides which of those tools to use, or is that still a human decision? That's
Yes.
You've done that. You just ask a question and it will decide which tool to use. Or? Cool.
It will. You have to decide what tool to use. For example, I think this dashboard is very cool for clients, but for me, it doesn't give me anything special. But if I give you my opinion as a software development professor, I take this and I can use it to explain all my students, because when my students finish their career, we don't know what technology they're going to have. Maybe when they finish, we are going to have a Skynet, or maybe John Connor or Sarah Connor, and they have to know how to talk to them and how to fight with them. So I think the very cool thing about this article is the Kiro flow.
Yep, cool. Buried in an article about patch compliance dashboards, which seems nobody's particularly interested in apart from me. But anyway, maybe I'll have to use Kiro to build my own patch compliance dashboard and then put it into GitHub for someone to review, which is probably now running on AWS, because Microsoft have run out of capacity because of people like me vibe coding stuff, putting it in GitHub repos. But that's a conversation for next week's podcast, I think. Let's move along to the final article for this week's podcast. This is an article on the Register about how Microsoft has finally allowed bring your own license for Amazon RDS. Repeat, Microsoft allows bring your own license for Amazon RDS. That's not me repeating. I'm just reading the register headline is exactly what it says. But obviously this has been a contentious point for a number of years now for people who've already invested in SQL licenses. And then if they want to run SQL on the Amazon cloud, they have to pay for it again through Amazon, thereby writing off the investment that they'd already made in their own license. Well, it seems that has now been changed. So, John, thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is a biggie. This is a biggie because Microsoft have gotten in a lot of trouble over the past year, 2 years. I forget how long these things have been rumbling on for, wherein they've gotten a lot of trouble for Microsoft licensed products being more expensive outside of Microsoft's cloud for reasons that were quite sort of opaque. Right? If they genuinely said, yes, it's because we're kind of discounting it because it's on our own kit, I think I'd have been okay with that. And the CMA and Competition Markets Authority and various other, authorities of such natures might not have been quite as okay with it as I am, but I'd have been okay with that. But historically, they've been very opaque about why it's cheaper to run their own kit on their own cloud, right? Because it's cheaper to was cheaper to run things like SQL Server, Windows servers, whatever, on Azure than on AWS or GCP or wherever. Okay, this kind of starts to eat into that a little bit, I think, because if you can bring your own license to another cloud, to AWS for SQL Server, and SQL Server licenses are prohibitively expensive, it's really spendy, then what you can do is you can start to do things like license arbitrage. You can say, well, I've brought my license with me, therefore I don't have to pay the ridiculous hourly run costs to AWS. I just pay the hourly run costs for the kit. And realistically, you'd look at, say, a non-licensed database product. Look at, I don't know, Aurora or MySQL or Postgres or something that doesn't have a license associated with it at the same size. And then you look at SQL Server, Oracle does this as well, and it's so much more because they've baked the hourly license cost into the hourly fee. Right? If you can bring your own license with you, then all of a sudden you put them in License Manager, you apply it, bosh, your costs just go down because you've been able to buy your license directly at a lower price point. Fantastic if you're stuck with things like SQL Server. That's kind of about the size of it, I think. It's one of those really, really minor changes that's really good if you need it, but most people probably don't need to care.
What are your thoughts on this one, Luis?
I haven't used SQL Server for a long time. I mainly use MySQL and the other ones. But I think this is the most strategic, interesting announcement because it's not a technical implementation. It's only you only need is take your license and you can reduce your cost on the ECS or RDS. It depends on what service you are using. It helps you to remove the a real barrier for enterprise with SQL Server software assurance states. It eliminates the second licensing cost for RDS because I can bring my own license or I can get a lower price. It can allow you to capture operational data into ecosystem. All the analysis, all the services you can use there. Maybe Microsoft may revisit in future product terms if Azure loses significant management data share, because there are, if you evaluate I don't know how to say this. I don't know how to say Gartner Magic Quadrant. I don't. Yeah. If you evaluate this, you have AWS first and then Azure. Maybe Azure will make take some initiative to reduce this, because if you allow all your clients to go to EC2 or RDS with lower prices, many of them, you will lose all these customers and they will go there. If you are in AWS, you have all the services with Azure and maybe you can offer the discounts on any other things.
Yeah. The article does state that Microsoft declined to comment about why they've done this now, but the speculation is that SQL Server popularity is declining. Potentially Microsoft are deprioritizing it strategically in favor of other cloud-based database options. But my speculation is it's possibly due to the Competition and Markets Authority probe that John mentioned, although that does only specifically apply to the UK market. And this, I believe, is a global announcement. But who knows? It's all speculation because no official comment from Microsoft. But a very welcome change nonetheless for any customers that are still dependent on SQL Server for their applications running in AWS. But on that note, we have reached the end of our time for Season 5, Episode 22 of Logicast. So it just remains for me to thank our third-time returning guest, Luis Valdivia. Great to have you back on the podcast with another sporting shirt with a story behind it. I love that this is now your theme. And maybe we'll get you on for a fourth time with a different sporting shirt to share with us. And John, staying on the subject of shirts, glad you've dug the orange back out from the bottom of the Logicata t-shirt drawer. I shall have to do the same.
To be clear, it's not the Logicata t-shirt drawer. I know I've got a lot of them, but it is just the t-shirt drawer.
I think if you were to count the number of Logicata t-shirts versus other t-shirts, then a high proportion of them would be Logicata. And maybe if you haven't got enough, we'll get you some more so you can have a dedicated Logicata t-shirt drawer.
Well, you're going to have to buy me the drawer too, then.
Well, I haven't seen the structure of your bedroom furniture, obviously. So I think we better not continue down that line of conversation. But no, as I said, we have reached the end of our time for Season 5, Episode 22 of Logicast. So if you are still listening, thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed it, please give us a like, a rating, follow our YouTube channel, and do tell your friends. We are available to download from wherever you download your podcasts. So that's it for this week. We will be back next week with another episode for you. But until then, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next time.